Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode of Down and Dirty. Today's episode is focused on what to expect your first day on the job. So this is for anyone who's watched my previous videos, who's decided full on they're gonna go into the heavy equipment world. You called around, you got a job, now what do you expect your first day? If you haven't watched them already, I would highly encourage you to go back and watch my first videos in the series that go through what to expect from the industry, how to get into the industry, what pay is like, and that will kind of set you up for where you are when you finally arrive at this video, where you have gone ahead, you have gotten a position, but you haven't gone forward with your first day on the job. All that being said, let's get right into it. The first thing I want to say is, if you've made it this far and you haven't stopped smoking weed, you need to call your buddy and you need to get an emergency piss cup from him, because unfortunately, it is a necessary evil in this industry that your employer will drug test. For insurance purposes, everybody that I've ever worked for does require operators to get tested. So know that going into it, that you will have to be drug-free in order to hold this position. Most employers will also randomly drug test, so don't think you're gonna be able to start smoking once you get your position. You are never safe. I almost learned that lesson the hard way in my old job. So the first thing I want to talk about is what you need to bring to the job with you on your first day. The absolute number one thing I will tell you is go invest in some good work boots. And I'm not talking about going to Walmart and spending $75 instead of $50. I'm talking about go out and spend $250 to $300 on a set of Red Wings or an equivalent boot that is actually going to be comfortable, number one. It's going to be waterproof, number two. It doesn't have to be 100% waterproof, but you do want something that you can be stomping around in mud puddles and muck all day long and not get your feet wet. You're gonna want something that breathes all right. And at the end of the day, you don't wanna go pay for these boots and have them fall apart within 8 months of being on a job site. I've had the same set of Red Wing boots for about 6 years now, and they, as long as you take care of them, you condition them regularly, once or twice a season. I say regularly, you should do it a lot more than that, but that's what you get with me. Those boots are still going strong. I've probably got another 5 to 7 years out of those boots before I really even consider going and getting another pair of work boots. So do yourself a favor, spend the money up front on a solid set of work boots. For all of this stuff I'm about to talk about, look down in the description. I'm gonna put some links for some items that I would recommend, that I would personally buy myself if I haven't already. So the number one item to bring with you on your first day is a good set of work boots. The second item I'm gonna talk about is probably something you've kind of half-assed thought about, but you haven't really thought about. It's your lunchbox. This is something you're going to go through probably 3 iterations before you find something you're happy with. I know that's what I did. I know most operators that I've worked with have been the same way. I'm going to recommend a lunchbox that I actually haven't purchased myself, but I absolutely would if I were still operating. I'm gonna link it down below. It is a backpack lunchbox combination. I like this for a couple reasons. The number one reason is you've got a crap load of space in it, and there's one thing you're gonna find out real quick. You're working on these jobs for anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day. You're not just eating one meal on the job, you're typically eating 2, if not 3 meals on the job. You're gonna want a lot of food because you're burning a lot of calories most of the time with the work that you're doing. This lunchbox combo, you have a cold storage area that isn't gonna fit all of your food, but it's going to fit all of your cold stuff. The rest of the backpack you can use to store your snacks, you can use all of your warm, dry food, and then you can also use it to store your rain gear and some other miscellaneous items that you might want to have with you on the job. So that's the first reason I like the backpack. The second reason I like the backpack is you can throw a carabiner on that thing and you can hang it inside the cab of the machine you're working on, or if there's no room in the cab, you can find somewhere outside the machine to hang it from. So it's actually giving you a lot of options on where to store that, because one thing you're going to learn very quickly if you're starting out in the seat, there is not a lot of room in these machines for your lunch. It's one thing that I can't believe engineers haven't spent more time thinking about, because it's a fact of the industry. You're in this machine for 12 to 16 hours a day, but it is what it is. So I'm going to throw a link down below. Make sure you bring a good lunchbox. Make sure you bring yourself enough food. Once you're on the job site, you're not going to go off the job site typically, unless you are, on a road job in the middle of a city, or you've got a convenience store right down the street. 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time, you're not leaving the job once you're there for the day, and you're spending a solid 16 hours there. Item number 3 you're going to want to bring with you on your first day on the job: water. It goes along with food like we just talked about. You're going to be on this job site for 16 hours. You're not leaving. You're not going down the road to get a quick Gatorade or to go get a Red Bull or something. No, all of your drinks you need to bring with you. So that's part of the reason I recommended the Lunchbox that I did. Now I'm going to recommend a Hydro Flask. I unfortunately didn't bring mine with me for this video, but the reason I like the Hydro Flask so much, I can put water in that thing at 4:30 in the morning, and when I'm taking a drink from it at 6:30 at night, it is still ice cold. That thing is a tank. I've dropped it off of concrete breakers. I've dropped it off of backhoes. I've had it rolling around the cab on multiple loader jobs. The thing has got dents and scratches all over it. It's still ice cold. It's still got the vacuum seal. I can't recommend the Hydro Flask enough. Regardless if you don't bring, whether or not you buy the Hydro Flask, bring water and make sure you bring enough water. So another thing guys will do is take gallon milk containers, or they will take like the liter Coke bottles, fill them about 2/3 of the way up at night, throw them in the freezer. If you overfill them, they're gonna explode. So make sure you only go about 2/3 with that thing until you kind of get a feel for it. But you can freeze them overnight, top off the last third in the morning when you wake up. You've got water that's slowly gonna melt over the day. You just kind of have to make sure you don't overdrink where the ice is melted to. A little bit of a pain, you get used to it. That's another great alternative to a Hydro Flask. The next thing on my list, I'm gonna recommend that you have it. You may not need it right off the bat, but I tell you, when you will need it, you're gonna be grateful that you got it. Rain gear. There's a couple options here. The first option is what I personally did on the job. I was actually in the process of doing it different when I ended up quitting the operating world and going into equipment sales. But what you can do is go to Walmart, and for about 40 bucks, I think, it's not cheap. I want to say it's like 30 or 40 bucks, you can get one of those Frogg suits. Throw them in your bag, make sure you've got them on them, and just realize that you spent $30 to $40 on a disposable set of rain gear. You're lucky if you get 3 or 4 uses out of it, just because it's constantly catching on your boots when you're trying to pull it up. It rips, it tears, it's not hardy rain gear. That's option number one. That's what I personally did for a while. It was a total waste of money, and I'll tell you why. For about 200 bucks, you can get on Amazon, or you can get on a couple websites online, and you can get the actual rain gear that is solid material. It's made for construction. It's gonna last. It's about 200 bucks. So yes, that is a little pricey up front, but you do the math real quick. If you're spending about 40 bucks on a set of rain gear from Walmart, and you're going through them probably 2 to 3 sets a year, it doesn't take very long for that to add up very quickly to you should have just spent the money on real rain gear, which is exactly what I discovered. So I will recommend go out and buy a solid set of rain gear right off the bat. Again, I'll link to one in the description if you want to check it out. The next item I'm going to recommend you bring for your first day on the job. This is a total recommendation. This is not necessary. It's not a requirement. A good Bluetooth headset. The reason I say this is one of the biggest things that will get you in trouble on the job is being on your phone all the time. One of the things that will help with that is a Bluetooth headset. The other reason I really enjoyed my Bluetooth headset is because when I was out on the job, there's a ton of background noise. It's really hard for people to hear you. With those Bluetooth headsets, it picks up your voice crystal clear compared to your regular phone speaker. People can hear you better. You can hear them better. You have much more concise conversations, whether it be with your foreman or other operators on the job, or if your wife calls or whatever the circumstance may be. I can't recommend this one enough, but again, it's not necessary. It's more of something that's nice to have and may keep you out of trouble in the long run. So check the comments down below. I'm going to link to a headset that I would recommend. It's got really great sound. It's a really sturdy little unit. It's personally what I would use if I were still operating the equipment on the job. So there's 2 items that you may or may not need. Most of the time your employer supplies them, but you do want to specify so you don't look like a little bit of an ass your first day. The first is, if you are starting in a laborer position, a shovel. Most employers will supply you with a shovel. Again, if you're starting with a smaller company or just different circumstances, or you might want a special shovel. Who knows? Maybe you like your special shovel. Ask the question beforehand. See if you need to have a shovel on your first day, and if so, show up with one. If not, don't worry about it. Item number 2, if you are coming into this as an operator, you're going to want to ask about a grease gun. Every large company that I've ever worked for has supplied your first grease gun. No questions asked. You don't have to worry worry about it. They will also supply all of the grease to go into that grease gun. But again, circumstances might be different. You might want to purchase your own grease gun. I will tell you, over time, you will learn. If you are an operator and you spend time in this industry and you make a career out of it, an electric grease gun is invaluable. I will link the one I have down below in the description. It is an absolute life changer. Don't get ahead of yourself though. If this is your first day and you're not sure you're gonna stick this out, stick with a manual grease gun, get some time under your belt. Make sure you're gonna wanna do this before you go invest in an electric grease gun. But that is something that you do wanna ask your employer. Do you need to provide your own grease gun? All right, so now let's get into what to actually expect. So for your first day on the job, more than likely, if you're working for a somewhat reasonably sized company, you're going to get a phone call from a foreman, and he's gonna tell you a location and a time. And it's gonna be something like, meet at these crossroads, and we're gonna be, 600 yards down on the right, or it's gonna be meet out in this random field that's at the corner of this and this, or go a quarter mile. You're not going to get clear directions because unfortunately you picked construction to go into, which means you're building the location that people will soon go to. You don't have an address. You get crossroads and weird funky fields that you have to show up to. The one thing I will say here is ask questions if you have questions. No foreman is going to get pissed off at you because you didn't understand where in God's green earth you needed to be in the middle of a cornfield at 6:30 in the morning. No one's going to get upset for you double checking on that. And again, if you show up the following morning, make sure you save your foreman's number when he calls, because you're going to use that quite a bit throughout your time on that job. Call your foreman back. He's the first one on the job in the mornings. You're not going to wake him up. You're not going to irritate him. Call him and specify where you need to be if you're having problems. You don't need to be ashamed of asking questions. 95% of the time when you show up to these jobs, half of even the old timers don't realize where they're showing up the first day. You just kind of fumble your way through it. Ask questions, make a phone call. As far as your start time goes, you're probably going to expect 6:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, this is not an industry where you get to sleep in. It's an industry where you wake up, you're there before the sun goes up or right as day breaks, and you're going to leave probably past sundown most of the time, especially in a northern climate where you have a limited work season. So that's another aspect of this that you should expect. Don't ask about quitting time. The foreman and the people on the job will let you know when you're going to quit. Expect to put in a 12 to 16 hour day. That's just is what it is. Same for working weekends. You need to fully expect to work at least Saturdays, if not Sundays, especially if you're in a northern climate. You have to take advantage of the good weather. It is what it is. If weekends don't work for you, if late nights don't work for you, unfortunately, this is not the industry for you. I'm under the impression, since you're watching this video, you've already made that decision. You already know where you're at and you're expecting this, but just to set the record straight, that's what you should expect. So when you finally show up to the job, you park your truck, the first thing you're gonna do when you get there is you're gonna look around for the foreman to figure out where exactly he wants you. This is gonna be your first day on the job. He's gonna feel you out, you're gonna feel him out, and part of that process is you need to actually physically introduce yourself to the guy, and the only way to do that is to kind of wander around the job site until you see a white truck driving around furiously, firing off phone calls and, talking to people out the window. That's the foreman. Go over, introduce yourself, and just ask him where he wants you and what you need to be doing. I'm assuming, again, since you're watching my videos, that you don't have any experience in the industry. Be forward with your foreman about that. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Tell him that you're totally green to the industry, and tell him you're gonna need a little coaching from time to time. I'm gonna say the vast majority of foremen nowadays will not have a problem with this at all. Most foremen are pretty understanding, but at the same time, you need to walk into this from the get-go with a thick skin, because there are always those foremen that are just always have a chip on their shoulder. They've always got a problem, and they're just going to be an ass right off the bat. You can't let that get you down. You need to keep rolling. You need to put your head down and just plow through all of this. You've got to have a thick skin if you want to be in this industry, and you have to start from minute one when you hit that job site. So the next thing I want to talk about, you've probably watched countless hours of YouTube videos, including mine. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support, on what to expect and how to run equipment and how to grade and what not to do and what to do. And I'm going to tell you, the best experience and the only experience that truly counts is job site experience. Please do not get to the job and think that you know everything. The best piece of advice I will tell you is keep your mouth shut and keep your ears open and keep your eyes open. You need to be constantly observing what's going on around you. If you've never done anything in this field, you will learn very quickly Job sites are busy, dangerous places, and everyone has a role, and you need to figure out what all of those roles are, because no one's going to come manually walk you through all of this. This is something where you've got to kind of figure it out as you go. Absolutely ask questions. Find good operators. I'm assuming that you can pick out a decent operator from just a stick puller because you're watching these videos and you've taken an interest in kind of gaining knowledge before you go and start something. Go use that on the job site. Go find someone that clearly knows what they're doing and isn't just going through the motions pulling sticks. That's another thing you're going to learn very quickly on the job. There are stick pullers and there are operators. Operators know their craft. Stick pullers go and smooth out dirt and leave a bunch of crap everywhere and have no idea what they're doing. Don't be a stick puller. Go find a good operator to observe. Watch him. When you're not working, when you don't have your head down over a shovel, or if you're running a roller or something because you managed to get an operator position off the bat, when you're not rolling or you're sitting there getting loaded running an off-road dump truck, that's the perfect time to observe the operators. Watch the hoe operator that's loading you. Watch the dozer operator that's laying down stone that you're rolling. Go watch the laborers, how they're connecting all the edge drain in and stuff. I mean, there's so much to take in on these jobs. You have no excuse to be on your phone or doing anything like that. You need to be observing the whole time. Don't be a know-it-all. That's the quickest way to get yourself ousted on one of these jobs, especially if you're green to the industry. People who have been in this industry for a while will be able to sniff you out within 5 minutes that you don't know what you're talking about. Don't play the game, just listen and learn. That's the best piece of advice I can tell you. The next thing I'm going to tell you is, and this may seem like a bit of a no-brainer, but it seems to get lost on job sites, just be respectful. And that goes for old-time operators as well. That's not just for new guys. Be respectful. I mean, everybody's out there trying to make a buck. Everybody's out there because they chose this path over going into a cushy office job. Just be respectful. Be respectful of the fact that we're all brothers in this. We're all in this together. Treat people like that. And this kind of goes along for if it's your first day on the job and you manage to sneak your way into a seat. First of all, congratulations to you. But secondly, most likely you're going to be on a roller or an off-road dump. If you're on a roller, I'm going to tell you this right now and save you a whole lot of heartache. You're going to be working alongside density testers. Those are the guys that come and make sure that you've rolled an area good enough that it will pass compaction tests. Be nice to those guys. And it's not just because you don't want to be an it's because if you're nice to those guys, they will help you when you get into a tough spot where you have an area that's really struggling to pass. They may give you another 2 or 3 density shots instead of just saying, roll it again for another hour and a half. So be nice to those guys. Similarly, your laborers, if you're in a union state, it is very easy to get into the mentality that you're an operator and you're over a laborer. That's not further from the truth. You are not above laborers. Those guys are skilled craftsmen, especially when you really take the time to watch what those guys do. Do not think yourself above the laborers, and by all means, when those guys need help, get off your machine and help them. That will go such a long way with those guys, and you'll learn very quickly too. Laborers can make your life so much easier as an operator. Likewise, they can make it so much more difficult if you give them a hard time. So be respectful of those guys. Really appreciate what they're doing for you, because 90% of the time they're aiding you in the machine. Appreciate that. Thank them for that and treat them as such. So the last thing I want to say on my to-do list is, and what to expect is, always try to stay busy. One of the things that pisses foremen off the quickest is when they look over and see you leaning over a shovel, or they see you parked on the roller on your cell phone. Don't do that. Always stay busy. And if you absolutely have nothing to do, that's fine. That's where you go over and you start asking other people if they need help with something, or you start observing and learning. Ask questions. Use those times to educate yourself. If you literally don't have anything you can possibly do, go educate yourself by asking either an operator some questions, or in all honesty, your laborers. You find a good laborer that's been on the job for 5 or 10 years, 15 years. A lot of these guys are old timers. They've been on 20 plus. Those guys know a heck of a lot more than a lot of operators about operating. Not by actual seat time, but by watching over the last 20 years other guys operate. They can teach you tricks. They can teach you how to make their lives easier so your day goes smoother. So go take this downtime that you've somehow managed to get on a job site and go educate yourself. That's a great piece of advice that so many people just don't do from the get-go, and they suffer from it down the road. You can advance a lot quicker in this industry if you take some humility and you go ask questions and you commonly say, I don't know. So the next thing I want to touch on is the do not list. And when I say do not, I want you to imagine giant capital do not do this on the job unless you want to have a miserable life. Number 1, do not spend the day glued to your phone. I'm going to tell you right now, if you have a Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever addiction on your phone, you need to turn your phone off. That is one of the quickest ways to get your ass chewed or just outright thrown off of the job, is to spend the day sitting on your phone. Again, like I just covered, if you have the time to sit on your phone, you have the time to go over and get educated by some of the old timers on the job. Start asking questions. And in all honesty, if you see your foreman sitting and there's an opportunity where you don't have anything to do, if you want to win some points, go ask to see the prints. He'll show you the plans. If he's got a minute, he'll show you the plans. Ask to see him. That's going to show initiative that you're going out of your way to look at the bigger picture to understand what's going on. Number 2, do not lean on your shovel. This kind of goes hand in hand with being on your phone. The second someone looks over and sees you leaning on your shovel while everyone else is doing back-breaking work or driving around trying to get everything done before the hours in the day run out, you're going to get your ass chewed real quick, especially if you're the new guy. Again, ask questions. If you don't think there's anything to do, ask someone if there's anything to do. More than likely there's something to do, but because you don't have the experience, you're just not seeing it. So be proactive in this area and ask if there's anything you can do instead of just leaning over your shovel until someone gives you a personal invitation to start working. One of the golden cardinal rules of the job site. This is one of the most important things I can tell you. Don't mow over grade stakes. Grade stakes are set by engineering firms. Engineering firms generally have a minimum charge of $500 to come out to the site to replace 1 or 2 grade stakes that you backed over on the roller while you weren't paying attention because you were looking down at your phone. Don't mow over grade stakes. Grade stakes are sacred unless someone tells you otherwise. I don't care if you think you're 10 steps past needing the grade stakes. You're the new guy, leave the grade stakes for an old timer to take out. That is one of the biggest things you do not do on a job site, is take out grade stakes. So finally, the last thing I will tell you on the do not list is don't up finish grade. If you don't know what finish grade is, you're gonna learn that one real quick. I'm gonna come out with a video. My next video is gonna be common worksite terms. We're gonna go over this in a little detail. But for the time being, finish grade is, it doesn't have to be top of curb, it doesn't have to be top of pavement, it doesn't have to be any specific grade. Finish grade is an area that has been graded and rolled smooth and passed by the engineers. So it is ready for whatever the next step is. So whether it's subgrade that's been finish graded so that it can accept stone, or it's stone grade that's been finish graded so it's ready to accept pavement, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's finish grade, you don't get on it and go screw it up. It's okay to track across it if you're tracking in a straight line. If you're on a roller or an off-road dump, obviously you don't want to get out there and do donuts. It's okay to go across it as long as you're not screwing it up. Don't put gouges and scratches and track marks all in someone's finish grade, or you're gonna get your ass chewed really quick. So I do want to end this video on a positive note, and I do want to tell you it's okay to be nervous, especially if this is your first day, your first time in the industry. Everybody had nerves. If they say they don't have nerves, they're completely lying. Everybody has nerves driving up to this job site. It's intimidating. There's no getting around it. You're driving, on the side of a highway, ducking off behind some barrels so that you can find some random guy on this 13-mile long job site. Or you might be out in the middle of the woods and there's 15 pieces of equipment. You have no idea which one you're even supposed to be around. I mean, it's okay. Everyone has nerves. Don't let that discourage you. Don't let that get you down. It's okay to be nervous your first day. The next thing I want to say is it's okay to screw up. Everybody's been a rookie. Everyone's had a first day. Everyone's been new to the industry. I mean, even thinking about, I'm a road guy. All I've done is road work. If I were to get on a pipeline crew, I'd be making mistakes right and left. I have no idea how to do pipe work. So even experienced operators can do some pretty big goofs, and it's okay. Don't let that discourage you, even if you get yelled at. Again, thick skin time. Let it roll off your back and then show up and do it better next time. I mean, it's really not a big deal to screw up on the job. Everybody does it. Let it go and keep rolling. And finally, along those lines, it's okay to feel defeated. There's going to be days where you just can't get anything right. You screw up, and then you screw up over here, and then you screw up over here, and you're going to go home discouraged and you're going to want to quit. And the biggest thing I'll tell you is this is such a great industry to be in. This is such a fun industry, especially when you get on these big dirt jobs where you're moving lots of material. There's just machines all over the place. You're a kid in a sandbox again. Don't let a bad day or two knock you out of this industry. It's a great industry to be in. You're gonna have a blast. Stick it out. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope it takes some of the jitters away for your first day. I hope you guys have a blast in this industry like I did. And as always, if you have any questions, absolutely comment down below. Or I've gotten messages from multiple guys that have watched my videos. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. If you've got questions that you don't necessarily want aired out on the internet, feel free to shoot me an email or a personal message on Facebook. I respond back pretty quick. I love hearing from you guys. So if there's anything I missed, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode.